Good afternoon, colleagues. It's 14:35 now. We will start our presentation for today. Please confirm you can all hear me.
We can hear you.
Thank you so much. So today's presentation is on why CAPAs fail in clinical laboratories and how to get them right under ISO 15189 2022. Let me take this opportunity to welcome you all. If you are joining us for the first time, thank you for making that decision to be part of this family. Those of us who've been here since day one, thank you so much for the support. Colleagues, as usual, this presentation is for educational purposes only. And while every effort has been made to ensure the accuracy of the information regarding ISO 15189-2022, this presentation does not constitute official accreditation advice. Labs and participants should always refer to official ISO standard documents and their specific national or regional accreditation body requirements. About the speaker, the person talking to you today is Innocent Mjongwa. He's a QMS consultant with over 25 years of experience. He's a certified lead auditor for ISO 1589. He's a SLIPTA auditor, a SLAMTA trainer, and he has led multidisciplinary teams evaluate and assess labs in Botswana, Malawi, Namibia, Rwanda, Tanzania, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. And I'm very passionate about turning compliance into excellence, which is why today we are speaking about CAPA excellence. And the company hosting us today is called CLISS Quality Advisory. It's a company registered and legally operating in Botswana. And CLISS is an acronym which means Consulting for Laboratory ISO Systems Strengthening. It's a company that offers end-to-end management systems consultancy. We do training on ISO standards, mainly 15189, 17025, 17043. We also offer accreditation mentorship for labs that are preparing for accreditation. We do gap analysis audits. We also assist in risk management trainings and root cause determination. And today's training speaks to issues to do with root cause determination. So for today's presentation, we're going to look at these 7 sections. We hope to cover these 7 sections in the next hour. We'll look at the foundation, what CAPA is and why it matters to clinical laboratories. We'll look at the failure landscape. We'll explore 10 possible reasons why CAPAs are failing in clinical labs. We'll also take a deep dive into the requirements of ISO 15189-2022 insofar as CAPAs and non-conformance management is concerned. We will introduce the science behind root cause analysis. We'll also talk briefly about writing effective CAPAs. In here, we'll be looking at the structure, the content, and the language that you should be using when you are writing effective CAPAs. We will also talk at length about verification and effectiveness before your corrective actions are closed. Then we'll also give you some insights on building a sustainable CAPA culture that will help you improve and ensure your labs are implementing these with ease. And our learning objectives today, we want to help you identify the 10 most common reasons why CAPAs are failing, explain specific CAPA requirements under ISO 15189-2022, clause 8.7, apply systematic root cause analysis techniques, such as the most commonly used, the fishbone or Ishikawa diagram, the 5 why and fold tree. We will also help you write well-structured CAPAs with measurable time-bound corrective actions. We will also give you insights on verifying effectiveness using evidence-based criteria, and then create a sustainable quality culture that prevents recurring non-conformities. Maybe before we move on, we would want to know who is joining us today. Can you please launch the first poll? Kanye, are you there? Okay, I'll launch the first poll. The question is, how would you describe your current comfort level with the CAPA process? The options we have is expert, you are able to lead investigations and train others, or you are proficient, you regularly document and close CAPAs, or you are in the learning phase, you participate in the process, but you need guidance, you are not really confident. Or finally, you are just a novice, you are new to ISO 15189 requirements or QMS requirements in general, and you are here to learn and learn and learn. Thank you for the responses. I see responses are coming through. We're at 53% now of the participants, 56%. Maybe we can push it up a bit. Please respond. We push it up to 70%. We're at 59% now. Let's all click, 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 so we can see where we are. This will really help us in explaining concepts as we go along. We're at 63% now, 64%, 65%, 66, 67. I think one more person will take us to 70. 67%, one more person. One more person. Okay, so we're at 67%. Let's just end the poll for now and share the results so we see where we are today. So from the people joining today, we have 10% that are fairly new to the standards. Majority, 51%, they say they are learning. I guess that's the reason why they are here, to try and understand and be able to improve systems in their own labs. We have 32% saying they are proficient, they regularly document these and close the CAPAs. And we have 4 representing 6% who are saying they are experts and they are here for sharing notes. Thank you so much for your responses. We will move on with our presentation. So first we look at the foundation. What is CAPA and why does it matter in clinical laboratories? I know this is old terminology that the young ones may not be familiar with. CAPA is derived from corrective action, preventive action. So corrective action is action taken to eliminate the cause of a detected non-conformity or other undesirable situation in order to prevent occurrence or prevent recurrence. While preventive action is action taken to eliminate the cause of a potential non-conformity. This is before an incident, and other potential undesirable situations in order to prevent occurrence rather. So the first one is recurrence. An incident has occurred, we put a corrective action. With the second one, we are preventing occurrence before it even happens. So the CAPA concept is a systematic, evidence-based process that addresses problems at their root, not just their symptoms, but it's the backbone of ISO 15189 compliant quality management systems. So let me take you back a little. For those of you who've not been around long enough, for some of us who've been more than 25 years in the field, we saw the new standard, the standard 15189 introduced in 2003. Then there was a 2007 version, the 2012 version, and the 2022 version. So the concept of preventive action, how it has evolved over the years. So in the 2003 version, it was mainly a procedural compliance issue. It was introduced as a standalone clause that was merely mirroring what was in the parent standard, that is ISO 9001, 2000, and ISO 17025 standard. And then we saw some structural adjustments that gave birth to the 2007 version. And in this instance, we saw preventive actions being triggered by audits and other deficiencies, and actions expected to be implemented within agreed timelines. But still, we saw that it was still event-driven approach, which is then why we started having the terminology of CAPA, corrective action, preventive action, because it always came after corrective action, hence the two being implemented alongside each other. And then the 2012 version, it was retained, but the majority of cases, it was misapplied. There was a bit of some confusion now because new definitions came. We were told that corrective action and preventive action are totally different things, and we need to consider them separately. But of course, being in the lab for some time, we still maintained the language CAPA. And what then happened was most labs will still complete their CAPA forms, and you'll find that when you go to the labs, there's total disconnect with the intent of the clause. And then came 2022 version, the clause was totally removed because the old approach was not meeting the intent. So here now we see preventive action, the clause being abolished, but the concept is now embedded into other clauses and risk is now more emphasized. It does not mean there is no more preventive action, but it was now integrated across the entire standard. And here we see the new standard referring to risk 85 times as compared to the previous versions of the standard. So it's more emphasized, but it's now integrated. It's no longer a standalone clause. Why CAPA matters in clinical laboratories? We all know that 70% of patient clinical decisions are based on lab results. So if anything goes wrong, it means the patients are affected. And then 1 in 10 errors that happen in the lab, they reach the patient with clinical impact. So we need to guard against such safety issues getting to the patient. And you are 3 times more likely to fail your accreditation assessment if you don't implement a robust CAPA system. So the third one is a compliance issue. And then we know that across all the areas of the quality management system, ecosystem, CAPA is like a connective tissue that joins everything. If your EQA fails, you need to do some investigations. You need to do root cause analysis. You need to do corrective actions. You need to prevent things from occurring again in future. Your internal audits, you raise non-conformities there, and then you need to implement your CAPA system. So this is your non-conformity management system. So in general, it is the connective tissue of your management system. And then now let's look at why CAPAs fail. And we are bringing to you the 10 most common failure modes in clinical laboratory practice. We'll look at this in detail. The first one is treating symptoms, not the actual causes. The second one, vague or unmeasurable actions. Number 3 is no timelines or accountability in your non-conformity management systems. Inadequate root cause analysis, ineffective verification of closure, recurring non-conformities, CAPAs remain open and they are never closed, lack of risk-based prioritization, which is really an emphasis of ISO 15189-2022. We saw that it's quoted 85 times in the new version of the standard. And then poor documentation and traceability. And also we've seen labs that are having CAPAs that are totally disjointed and they are not connected to the overall quality management system. So let's look at the first one. The first one, we say treating symptoms and not root causes. And the typical approach like this would be you have an air bubble that was detected in a pipette tip. This could be a chemistry analyzer or something. And then the typical approach would be a reminder was issued to staff to check pipette tips before use. This is very common in the labs that we visit. And why this fails is because it addresses a behavior, not the system itself. This can easily happen again if a different analyst comes to work on the same instrument. And we are saying, if you are doing this beyond compliance, you'll be looking at the root cause investigations, and you'll see that a thorough root cause might reveal worn out pipette seals and replacement schedule implemented with verification. Okay, so the standard clause 8.7 requires us to have demonstrable evidence that corrective actions address the root causes and prevent recurrence. So this is the approach that labs should be taking. Number 2, vague or unmeasurable corrective actions. In a scenario where TAT exceeded threshold of 12% of stat samples, the lab has set that as a target. The typical approach would be staff to improve sample processing efficiency. It is not clear how the improvement will be measured. It's not specific. There's no target. We don't know who the process owner is. You cannot even audit compliance to such a statement, but rather have an approach like pre-analytical sorting workflow has been redesigned with 30-minute start targets, and this is monitored weekly for 3 months, right? So this is measurable. We've set targets and we know that we'll be monitoring this on a weekly basis for the next 3 months. And then no timelines or accountability. For instance, if a lab picks that there's repeated QC failure on a chemistry analyzer, the typical approach you see in most labs would be instrument to be serviced when available. We don't know when this is going to happen. when available. So you come back after 3 months, after 6 months, it has not been serviced because it's not clear. No one has been assigned for that, and then it remains open forever. But rather have an approach like preventative maintenance schedule, scheduled for the 15th of April 2026, assigned to scientist so and so, and then completion confirmed by supervisor, CQ advisor, for instance. So this is clear. You have dates and you have assigned people and you have people, a supervisor that will come and confirm that indeed this has been completed. And in such a way, you will find that the kappa will not remain open forever. This is your non-conformity. It will not remain open forever. Proficiency testing failure in hematology. In most cases, you will find people say cause identified as human error. Training refresher completed. Okay. So in most cases, you will find that this is just a form that has been completed and people would say training has been completed. And people, human error is never a root cause. It is just a symptom. And we need to identify the why behind the human error. We need to identify the why behind the human error. It's always easy to blame people and say so and so made a mistake, but it's the easiest way to complete the form and make an ineffective non-conformity management system. Rather, 5 whys in this case reveals an outdated reference range table. In the SOP, updated review cycle was shortened to 6 months. And then number 5, ineffective verification of closure, sample mislabeling events 3 in 6 months. That's a big number, okay? And then in this case, again, you blame it on staff. Staff were retrained on labeling the on the labeling procedure. And the kappa is based on completing the training, but there is no data collected to confirm whether the error rate has increased or decreased. You simply say sample labeling, you blame it on the person labeling the samples, and then you come back and check if the training was done. Yes, it was done. You then close based on what you've seen, but you've not actually gone ahead to check and verify if the error rate has come down. But your approach should be error rate monitored for 90 days post the training, and the target 0 mislabels, and evidence was reviewed by the quality manager before closure. So the quality manager comes back after 3 months to verify that indeed after the training, there's not been an incident of a sample that was mislabeled. Okay. And then recurring non-conformities, I'm sure it's a problem that we see in most labs. And in this case, you have a sample reagent storage deviation appearing each year, okay? And each instance is addressed in isolation with new training. So every time it happens, you train people. Every time it happens, you train people. And all these things are taken in isolation. There is no trend analysis taking place in that lab. There's no pattern recognition. There is no systemic fix, and the problems return cyclically. But rather, you should be able to review your trends and see what happens in particular times of the year and respond accordingly. Okay, so kappas are open but never closed. That's another example. Let me move forward. Number 8 will be lack of risk-based prioritization. We'll look at this in detail in the future slides. And then poor documentation and traceability. Actions are described verbally in meetings only, but there's no evidence of trail, okay? And then you also have CAPAs, or non-conformance management, that is siloed from the quality management system. But remember, we said CAPA system is the connective tissue of your management system. So if you are doing this in isolation, you are not looking at your risk registers, you are not looking at other areas, you are bound to fail in your CAPAs. Okay, maybe before we move forward, we launch again a second poll just to try and understand your experience with failures, what you've been seeing in the labs you are working at. Okay, so in your experience, what is the most common, the most frequent reason CAPAs are failing in clinical labs? The options we have is treating symptoms instead of root causes, vague or unmeasurable actions, lack of accountability or timelines, poor root cause analysis, or ineffective verification. Okay, I see responses. We are at 32% now. Thank you so much. 38%, 45%. Thank you for the responses. Please keep them coming so we understand what you guys are seeing on the ground. 52%, 54%. When we get to 65, we'll stop. We're at 57% now. Thank you. 57%. 57%. I think one more person will take us to 60. Let's respond. 57%. Okay, we'll end the poll and share the results. Okay, so for most people, it's treating symptoms instead of root causes. Treating symptoms instead of root causes. I remember a colleague of mine once said that when we do NC management and investigations, people tend to cut the wrong tree, but there will be that tree that is growing bigger and bigger in the middle of the road, but people will go for the shrubs and avoid cutting the big tree. And then we have also some seeing unmeasurable actions there, but also poor root cause analysis is taking the second spot at 32%. Thank you for your responses. So this was our section on why CAPAs are failing. Now let's take a deep dive on the requirements of ISO 15189-2022 as documented in clause 8.7. Maybe before we go there, we make a comparison with the 2012 version that we implemented for 10 years. The 2022 is risk-based. I think we've said this over and over, and we'll continue saying it. In terms of the 2012 version, the CAPAs were initiated reactively, but the encouragement now is that we consider the risk and the impact on the patient. And then root cause analysis. In the 2012 version, investigation was implied, but not mandated. It was implied that when you give me a CAPA form or a non-conformity form, nicely completed, it implied that you did do a root cause analysis. But now in the 22 version, it's an explicit requirement that you determine the causes. So when I'm assessing your lab or auditing your lab, I would want to see that record to say, indeed, you did carry out a root cause analysis. In terms of effectiveness review, as long as CAPA, the NC is closed and documented per 2012, I would be happy. But 2022, we're saying, let's go a step further. Show me the evidence of effectiveness before you closed the NC. Did you check for effectiveness before you closed the NC? Preventive action, it was a separate process in the 2012 version, but now it has been integrated across all the risk management, and proactive monitoring is then encouraged or required that we do implement risk management and proactive monitoring activities. In terms of traceability, yes, records will be kept, one form, NC form completed all the way to signing it off would have been okay. But per 22 version, I want a full trail of what action was taken, who is the person responsible, and what were the timelines and what were the outcomes. So 2022 version, I'm looking for more than just compliance issues. Okay. So as per 8.7, we can dissect it into 6 parts. The first one being identification of a non-conformity across all activities, including the pre, the intra, and the post-examination phases. Number 2, we are required to take immediate action to control and contain the non-conformity and deal with the consequences of that non-conformity. And then after we've contained it, we're expected to then proceed to carry out a root cause analysis. The standard says determine the cause of the non-conformity, and a documented root cause analysis is required. It's no longer implied, but it is required. We need to see that you did carry out a root cause analysis. And then corrective action, you implement corrective actions that are appropriate to the effects of the non-conformity encountered. In other words, these should be linked to the root cause that you would have determined. Number 5, review the effectiveness of the corrective action that was taken. And this time, we want evidence of documentation. How did you arrive at the conclusion to say, indeed, this corrective action was effective? And then you close it. And then last, you are expected to update the risk and opportunities for improvement register so that you plan for activities going forward. So that's 8.7 dissected from step number 1 up to step number 6. And if you implement this, you'll be fully compliant, and also you'll be implementing a system that speaks to patient safety. What your auditors are actually looking for is a CAPA register that is complete, listing all open and closed CAPAs with status, dates, and owners clearly captured. They are also looking for root cause analysis evidence. They're looking for measurable actions that are defined with a SMART criteria, and they are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Verification data should be in file, showing objective evidence that the corrective action that you implemented actually worked. You have monitoring data, you have audited results, or you have KPI trends that you are able to use to demonstrate that indeed this corrective action worked. You also need to have recurrence checks. In other words, you need to have trends analysis data to show that the non-conformity that was raised has been closed. It's no longer recurring. Overall, we then need to link with management review, because this is mandatory as per 8.9 to then discuss these at management review level. Okay, so let's touch a bit on root cause analysis and why it is the heart of your non-conformance management system. A corrective action, please take note of this. A corrective action without a root cause is just a guess. You are just like a doctor giving out antibiotics without DST. They are saying we've seen this before. This could be Staph aureus. They give antibiotics, and that strain might be resistant to the antibiotics you are giving. So it's a guess. So let's not guess. We are scientists. So there are different levels. The first level is immediate action to contain the nonconformity. For instance, an analyst that used the wrong calibrator. It's obvious. We came in, there was a problem. Then the analyst, we realized, okay, the analyst, a student maybe, used the wrong calibrator. It sounds obvious, not until you go to level 2 and try to understand the contributing factors. Ask yourself questions like this. Why did we have why did the analyst use the wrong calibrator in the first place? Do we have a system that prevents them from picking a wrong calibrator? And then level 3 is the actual root cause and systematic failures that created the conditions they need to be identified. So that's why we need to carry out root cause so that we get to the bottom of the matter. So the different tools, the first one, I think it's one of the most common ones that people just use is the 5 whys method. And here we have an example of a problem that occurred in the lab with a potassium result that was reported as critical high, but patient was not notified within the policy time frame. Okay, so the first why was the patient not notified? The critical result was not made within 60 minutes. Okay, why was notification delayed? The reporting analyst did not see the critical flag. Why was the flag not seen? The LIS alert was hidden behind the open window on the workstation. Okay, why was this not caught? Why did the analyst not pick it up? Because there is no dual verification step for critical results in the workflow. So you are getting to the bottom of the matter. And why does no verification step exist? The critical result SOP was not updated when the LIS was upgraded 18 months ago. So for the past 18 months, there's been an upgrade of the system, and then it allowed for critical results to be missed like that, because then the critical flag is hiding behind a window that the analyst is working on. Then this takes you to the bottom of the matter. And then there's the Ishikawa diagram, which we are all familiar with. We will not go into the details of this one for the sake of time. And then talk about choosing the right RCA tool for your non-conformity. Okay, so the 5 whys is best for simple single cause problems with quick investigations. So that's why most people are comfortable with this one. For instance, you're looking at TAT deviations, you have single specimen errors, you have minor procedural lapses, okay? It can oversimplify complex problems with multiple contributing factors. So you need to be clear with what you are doing so that you are able to discern and know that the problem I'm dealing with is not just a single cause problem, but you should be able to identify other contributing factors as well. And then the fishbone is best for multifactorial problems involving people, processes, equipment, and all those other parts of the 6 M's. Okay, and the faulty is best for critical failures where results risk to patients is high. And then the failure mode and effects analysis, very common in risk assessment processes. So these are just tools we are introducing to you for you to consider using. Okay, and then pitfalls for the RCA process. Number one, the issue I mentioned earlier on, we are too quick to blame human error. When there's a problem, we blame so and so. They are the ones who did 1, 2, 3. But the question we should be asking ourselves is, why did the system allow the person to do that? Okay. And then stopping at the first cause when you're implementing the 5 whys, we're not drilling deep enough. You do one question, the second question, then you are blank. You can't even go deeper to identify systemic, actionable problems that are underlying down there. And then confirmation bias. You have teams that are doing RCA, they already come with preconceived ideas. They already know what the problem is. So they are likely to be biased and agree on causes that they already expect. It helps to then consider building teams that will carry out the RCA process so that you have diverse members, and these will come with different perspective and they will challenge your assumptions. In most cases, you'll find that RCA is done by 1 or 2 people, maybe because the quality manager is sitting with so many NC forms, they need to close them, they sit down there, complete the forms, and that's where the failure then comes. And then individual or system view. Effective RCA focuses on processes and systems, not individuals. Please don't blame your testing scientists, but look at the systems and processes that allowed the individual to work in that manner. Now, let's look at writing effective CAPAs or non-conformance reports. Number one, the non-conformity description should be clear, factual description of what actually happened, when, where, and who was affected. Include objective data that will tell us the frequency and the impact. So if you do that, you'll be sure that your non-conformance report is clear and it will help you investigate and close your non-conformity well. Immediate containment action, right? What was done right there and then to limit the harm and stop the non-conformity from spreading, and document that with date and person that was involved. The root cause statement, after carrying out the root cause analysis, you need to come up with a clear evidence-based statement of the underlying system cause. Okay? So this will be accompanied probably by an extra form that tells us exactly how you arrived at that as being your root cause. Corrective action plan should be smart. You should be specific. Tell us who the owner is, what the due date is, the success metric. You need to predefine this one so that when you come back to check for effectiveness, we know what has been checked and verified and monitored over a given period of time. Preventative measures, broader actions to prevent recurrence, and in similar processes or other instruments or other shifts or staff. Remember the example we gave earlier on that you may train one person, but a second scientist may come after a week and still repeat the same mistake. Okay? And then effectiveness verification, we need to know how you know that the corrective action has worked. Okay? You need to define the monitoring approach, the time frame, the metric, and the decision criteria for the closure. This is predefined so that when you come back after 30 days or after 60 days, you're already checking against what is predefined and then you are able to conclusively say this has been checked, verified, and is a candidate for closure by the quality manager. And the quality manager then confirms the evidence, the effectiveness has been demonstrated, and the corrective action report is formally closed and signed off. If you do it this way, you'll not have a problem with your assessors, you'll not have a problem with your auditors, but you will be going beyond compliance and you will be approaching the excellence level. Okay, smart corrective actions. You need to be specific. Avoid statements like improve sample labeling, but rather consider saying implement a barcode-based patient wristband scanning step at the point of sample collection in the emergency department. So if you do this, it's clear. We know what you are going to be doing as corrective action, probably in response to samples that are coming unlabeled or misidentified samples. And then measurable, you don't say reduce errors, but you tell us exactly what you are going to do and be specific, telling us what you want to achieve. Achieve a mislabeling rate of less than 0.1% within 90 days, measured weekly, measured by weekly label audit. So every week you are checking for this and checking for any errors, and then you are able to demonstrate this after 90 days. Is it achievable? Eliminate all errors by next week. Definitely not achievable unless you're coming from Mars. And then you need to consider statements like complete LIS configuration and staff training by such and such a date. So that is achievable. Relevant, implement new staff uniforms. What has this got to do with the problem we have on the ground? It is not relevant. Whether they come with new uniforms or not, it's not relevant, okay? Address the LIS worklist, display issue identified as a root cause of the missed critical flag. Okay. And then a bit on the language of NC management writing, avoid statements like staff were reminded, SOP will be reviewed, training was provided, problem has been fixed, but rather you need to be specific and precise and tell us statements that are evidence-based. LIS configuration was updated on such and such a date. A pilot test on 200 results confirms critical flags now display on all workstations. So it shows us that you've done this and there is evidence, there is numbers that you can speak to in response to the non-conformity that was raised. Okay, so here we have a complete work example of a potassium critical result non-conformity that was raised. For the sake of time, we'll share the slides with you and you'll go through this for your training purposes. Okay, let's look at verification of effectiveness. The standard requires us to verify effectiveness. And effectiveness verification is about gathering objective evidence that the root cause no longer exists and the non-conformity has not recurred. So two things. The root cause that was identified no longer exists and the non-conformity has not recurred. Then you have reason to then mark your non-conformity as closed. It is not confirming that a training has occurred, like what we see in most documents, in most records. It is not confirming closing because the due date has passed. You know, auditors are coming next week, you go through all the files, your records, you just sign them off as closed. It is not stating that no further issues were reported. No, it's about going back and gathering objective evidence to say, indeed, this has been monitored for such and such a period, and these issues are no longer happening. Okay. The manager, it is not about the manager signing it off without evidence, like I'm saying, because you have an audit coming next week, you take all the forms, you take them to the manager, and the manager just signs them off. But rather, it is monitoring and showing target metric has been achieved. Remember the target metric that we said you predefine to say this will be used as evidence of effectiveness. It is about follow-up audits confirming the process compliance. It is about documented evidence reviewed and approved by the quality manager. It is about a sustained performance over a defined period of time, typically 30 to 90 days, to then say, indeed, over the past 90 days, this corrective action has been sustained, and therefore we have lessons to learn from that. Okay. And then evidence-based verification methods. This is new. Please have a look at this thoroughly, understand, and implement in your labs. The first one is about process monitoring. You check a specific predefined metric that is targeted by the corrective action. An example is critical result notification rate will be monitored weekly and define a pass threshold before monitoring begins, so that you don't fix answers after monitoring for 3 months to then say, no, we are passing. You define this before, so that you will use that metric to then evaluate your process after 90 days. Then follow up internal audits in a specific area. If there's a non-conformity that you know you've closed off, you need to carry out an internal audit in that particular area and check if there are still any issues or there is full compliance with the updated SOP. And then competence assessment, you also can use this to demonstrate that staff can correctly perform the corrected procedure, and assessment records are filed as evidence. So it is not enough to tell us that staff were trained and then you sign off a training register and then you say, okay, so that is now okay. You need to demonstrate competence beyond the training as evidence of effectiveness. And then technical verification for instruments or equipment CAPAs, you need to demonstrate through QC data that is reviewed over a given period of time, or repeat proficiency testing showing performance has been restored. So I know this one can be a bit difficult, especially for labs that are doing PT cycles of 6 months and stuff like that. So your NC will then have to remain open for those 6 months for you to then be able to demonstrate that the PT is now passing. Okay. Recurrence check, you need to check your trends analysis and use that as evidence to say, indeed, this has been verified and we know we are back on track. Okay. So this is for quality managers. What is it that you're checking for before you sign off as closed? Number one, you're looking at the root cause, whether it has been formally documented using an approved RCA method as per your management system. Number two, all corrective actions have been implemented, not just planned. You go to the form. In most cases, you see a form saying we plan to do 1, 2, 3. No, we want to see what was planned versus what was implemented. You're also checking for evidence of implementation, whether evidence of implementation has been filed and is traceable. You need to see those records, you need to see those photos, you need to see those audit results to say, indeed, this has been implemented and filed as part of your NC report. Effectiveness criteria that was predefined has been monitored and it's meeting the criteria that has been set. And then monitoring data covers the required period and meets the target threshold. So again, it's predefined. when you are closing it off, you need to check that you've accumulated enough data to justify why you are closing that non-conformity. Monitoring data has been reviewed and approved by the quality manager, and then updated SOP if there's a need. Work instructions or forms are approved, issued, and are now in use. You also need to check relevant staff who have been trained, and there's competencies to support the training that was done on the changes that were made. You also need to check if the rates register has been updated. If applicable, it's a requirement of 8.7. No recurrences of the same or similar non-conformity during the verification period. If your verification period is 90 days, there has not been a recurrence. And then lessons learned from that NC have been shared with relevant teams and added to management review agenda. The CAPA register is updated and closure date, evidence reference, and the quality manager signature. So all these, how many? This is 3, 6, 9, 12. These are the things you should be checking for as quality managers before you can put your signature and say, indeed, this non-conformity has been closed. Designing a CAPA register or a non-conformity register that drives continual improvement. These are the things that you should, at a minimum, have. You can have beyond this. Your NC-ID, which is like all terminology, CAPA ID, the date it was opened, the description, brief description of the NC, the root cause, the priority. Remember, we said you need to do risk-based prioritization of the NCs. Who owns the NC and the due date for that NC, and the current status, and what evidence do you have for closure? Evidence that I need to go back to and check, and then on what date it was closed. So if you do it this way, then you'll be fully compliant and you are moving towards excellence. And then let's talk briefly about building a CAPA culture that supports excellence. Here we're saying to ourselves why just culture matters more than the CAPA process. So you can have all the nice processes and implement everything we've spoken about. But if the culture is not conducive, your CAPAs will not be able to thrive. Okay? So number one culprit when it comes to failures is fear of blame. This is the reason why when you go to most labs, you'll not even find non-conformities. You go to the non-conformity file, you check, you'll see mainly non-conformities that were raised during an internal audit or an external audit, or if you are lucky, a PT failure. But NCs that are raised on a day-to-day basis, dololo, nothing, zero. There's nothing because people fear to be blamed. You need to adopt a just culture that distinguishes human error or risk behavior, reckless behavior, and respond proportionately without blaming individuals. CAPA is often seen as a punishment. You need to frame CAPAs as learning opportunities, not disciplinary actions, and maybe introduce in your team, celebrating teams that identify and report problems. Incentivize. If I'm identifying a problem, make it be known that we'll celebrate during your usual QA meetings. For instance, you identify teams that are doing well and you celebrate them. Number 3, management indifference. Leaders must visibly engage with CAPAs. They must review at management meetings, ask questions, and show to the team that it matters. In most cases, leaders, the lab directors, the lab managers will say this is a quality office thing. We will not even talk about non-conformities. It is not our problem. And then it's left with that quality officer or quality manager who doesn't have executive powers. So the top management should show that non-conformities matter. Then the rest of the team will be able to participate fully in the NC management. Reporting fatigue. Keep the non-conformity reporting process simple, despite the fact that we talked about so many things, but make it simple. Make it something enjoyable for the team, because these are people who are handling too many things in the lab. They don't want to be seen writing a lot of things, but make it enjoyable. Okay? And then also come back to them and say, the NC that you reported on such and such a day, this is what we've done and this is how far we've gone. And be able to demonstrate impact so that they are actually motivated to keep identifying issues and reporting them. And then share outcomes, like I said, with the team at every QA meeting or staff meeting, communicate and show them the impact. Okay. And then management's critical role in success of the program. Management need to be visible and they need to allocate resources to support closing and responding to CAPAs. And leadership visibility, when the director asks about CAPAs at team meetings, it signals importance and people will see how and why they should be documenting non-conformities. Recognition, we've spoken about this. Identify people that raise significant non-conformities and recognize them in one way or the other. Give them time off, or just talking about them, giving them a certificate or something like that. And then management reviews, it's mandatory that CAPAs be discussed at management review level. This is clause 8.9. It shows commitment to the processes, and then have clear escalation rules and respect the escalation rules. If CAPAs are more than 30 days old in your department, they need to be escalated to the quality manager, because probably you have problems that the quality manager may be able to assist you with. If they get to 60 days and they remain open, escalate to the lab director. The lab director should be able to act. If they are more than 90 days, no problem with escalating to executive level. It means then the whole team is not able to address the non-conformity. Rather than just closing it off and signing it off because audits are coming, show a clear escalation process. Okay. And then finally, be a learning organization. Build knowledge management processes so that CAPA lessons are captured, they are shared, and they are used to update trainings, SOPs, and risk management processes. And then as a quality manager or the management team, consider having these indicators to show how your system, your CAPA system is performing, right? The first KPI we're suggesting is the CAPA closure rate. At what rate are CAPAs being closed? Are they closed within target? More than 90% will be good. If anything is less than 75%, escalate. Escalate to the right level of management. Recurrence rates. If you are closing your NCs properly, doing proper root cause analysis, you should not be seeing re-raised NCs. They should not recur from time to time. So a target of less than 5% is okay to work with. But if you start seeing them going beyond 15%, it means your system is not effective. You're not doing thorough root cause. You are cutting the wrong tree all the time. and the big tree will always resurface. And then average kappa age at any given time, less than 45 days is okay. But if you're dealing with more than 90 days, average kappas, it means you are sitting on the job, you are not closing your non-conformities in time. So your system is not responsive. And then overdue backlog, less than 10% and greater than 25% is an escalation flag. So these are just indicators that we are suggesting to you for consideration with your team. Okay. One of the critical things, we are expected to integrate non-conformity management with risk management under the new version of the standard. Okay. So this is what we're also suggesting as an approach to integrating between the two, your non-conformities and the risks. So we're saying for a kappa that is has a high likelihood and a high severity, respond within 24 hours. Respond to that non-conformity and contain it within 24 hours. Do your root cause analysis and plan your corrective actions and implement, but respond within 24 hours. With a low likelihood and a high severity, respond within 7 days. The same applies with high likelihood and low severity, same level. Low likelihood and low severity, respond within 30 days. Okay. And then quickly, looking at the complete life cycle. Number one, it's triggering the non-conformity. Number two, containing. This speaks to immediate action. Number three, investigate through a systematic root cause analysis. Number four, plan action in a smart way. Number five, implement based on the plan that you would have developed. Number six, verify effectiveness, monitor performance over a predefined criteria and a predefined time period, and verify effectiveness. Number seven, close the non-conformity. And this is looking at the 12 checklists that we proposed your quality manager should look at to then verify and sign it off. And then finally, you learn from your non-conformity report. What is it that you learned from the non-conformity? You need to report back to the team and also report at management review level. Okay, here we have a quick reference of the clauses that speak to the non-conformity management or kappas. 8.7 mainly. This is where you'll find a lot about your NC management or kappa system cycle. And then a bit on real world ISO 1589 audit findings related to kappas and NC management. Okay. Number one, kappas that are opened but no root cause determination is documented. Corrective action state and SOP was reviewed, but the revised SOP cannot be located and there is no approval record existing. So you see it on the form, but there is no evidence to support that. The same non-conformity is identified in 3 consecutive audits. It clearly shows that your kappa processes are not effective. Every time you go to that lab, you raise the same NC. The form is completed, signed off by the quality manager. Come back after 6 months, the same NC is raised. It's not effective. Okay, so just go through this and see what you can identify with. But these are real life examples across the whole world. And then this is a suggested action plan for improving your CAPA system if you've identified gaps. Number one, you need to audit your current CAPA register and identify all CAPAs that are more than 90 days and establish an escalation plan that involves the whole cascade of management, from your section heads to your quality manager to your lab manager, lab director, up to executive level. Number two, implement a risk-based priority matrix for all new CAPAs, level 1, 2, and 3. Number three, require a documented RCA for every CAPA and ban, please listen to me, ban human error as a standalone cause. When you talk about human error, tell us why you're pointing at that, because the why of it is what you need to be addressing. And then understand the CAPA form or non-conformity form to include updates, to include verification criteria before actions are implemented. So it's a predefined criteria to say this is how we'll monitor and this is how we'll verify after the monitoring period. Define evidence of effectiveness in writing for every NC before you close it. You've defined the criteria, define the evidence of effectiveness. Has that been met or not? And then add CAPA KPIs to your monthly QC and quality management meetings to show how your NC management system is performing. And then conduct CAPA training, a CAPA training session for all your staff, focusing on the why, not just the how. And we are available as a CQA to help you conduct training for your teams, be it virtually or you invite us to come on the ground. We are available to train your teams and equip them so that they move from just compliance to excellence in managing non-conformities. Link your CAPA register to your risk register so that all closed CAPAs should be reviewed and update the risk register appropriately if there is a need. Include CAPA effectiveness review as a standing item in your next management review. So you're reporting on effectiveness and you're reporting on KPIs, summarizing to top management how your system is performing. And then establish a lessons learned process, sharing the outcomes with all relative staff and departments in quality management meetings. That way, you'll be able to promote the just culture. So in summary, what you need to remember from today's presentation, I know it was a mouthful. We've gone for just over an hour in the presentation. This is what we have for you to nicely read and understand. But before we wrap off, if you want a certificate of participation in this webinar, this is what you need to do. As usual, there is a quiz that you would need to take. We have a link for the quiz, which will be shared with you. You take the quiz, I think it's 20 or 25 questions, I'm not sure. The pass mark is 80%. And when you are done taking the quiz, we kindly ask you to contribute a small fee of $10 to be able to get a certificate. And when you've paid through the link that is provided, you send your proof of payment to the email address info@CLISSqualityadvisory.com. Once you've done that, you will receive your certificate via your registered email. And this is just a sample of the certificate that you can then display in your office, or you put in your CV that you did participate in a presentation on Kappa excellence in clinical laboratories, looking at why Kappas are failing and how we can get them right under 15189 2022. This certificate will be available to you if you take the quiz. And then as CLISS QA, we're inviting you to partner with us via the following platforms. We have a Facebook page that we would kindly ask you to follow. I don't know whether it's following or liking, or whatever. We also have a LinkedIn page, CLISS Quality Advisory, proprietary limited. We have our email address as info@clissqualityadvisory.com. Our WhatsApp number is +267 76 540 559. We're also active on YouTube. This is where we post all the recordings. And as of today, the link for today's recording will be shared with you by end of day today. And also we will share the material that we presented today. The QR code you see to your right, you can scan if you're using a computer, use your phone to scan it and follow our YouTube channel. So that QR code will take you straight to our YouTube channel. And this is where you will find all the presentations that we've done in the past. And you can listen at your own pace and use whatever material we are sharing to improve your activities in your labs. I think this brings us to the end of our presentation. Thank you very much for sitting in for over an hour and listening to us. I'll stop the recording for now and take any questions if there are any questions or comments. So for those of you who take the